Hezbollah has confirmed that its senior commander Ibrahim Mohammad Kobesi has been killed in an Israeli airstrike in South Beirut. This came hours after Israel had claimed that it had eliminated Kobesi, the commander of the missile and rocket network of the Hezbollah group, in a strike that killed 6 and injured 15. Protesters took to the streets in New York as they rallied for an end to the war in Gaza and neighboring countries like Lebanon that have been affected by the conflict. Protesters demonstrated against American military support for Israel as risks have arisen of a full-fledged conflict in West Asia. Anti-war activists have demanded an arms embargo against the US ally. Dozens of protesters gathered in Herald Square in New York City carrying banners that read "Hands off Lebanon now" and "No US-Israeli war on Lebanon." Around 700 members of Canada's Palestinian and Lebanese communities and their supporters demonstrated in front of the Israeli consulate in Toronto. The protesters placed children and their shoes on the stairs of the building as a symbol of the children killed during the conflict in Gaza.
Justice is our command.
Israel's military says it has intercepted a missile fired from Lebanon after sirens were sounded in the capital. A military spokesman said that the sirens that sounded in the Tel Aviv region and Netanya areas have, after a surface-to-surface missile was identified crossing from Lebanon and was intercepted. According to latest reports, Hezbollah has confirmed firing a ballistic missile which was aimed at the Mossad headquarters near Tel Aviv. Russia and Ukraine have stepped up their military operations in the past 24 hours. While Russia has reported continuous attacks on Ukrainian forces in its Kursk Oblast region, Ukraine has claimed regaining a facility in its Kharkiv Oblast. Meanwhile, the Russian Defense Ministry says Russian forces thwarted 5 attempts by Ukrainian troops to enter Russian territory while continuing to strike Ukrainian soldiers in the region. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has offered a series of incentives to encourage foreign companies to relocate to the United States if he wins the November election, and pledged to create special manufacturing zones on federal lands. During his speech in Georgia, Trump said that the incentives, which include low taxes and few regulations, would be offered only to companies that relocated manufacturing to the US and hired American workers. Voting is underway for the second phase of the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly polls in India. Foreign observers from 16 countries, which includes the US and Russia, are in Union territory to witness these polls. Security has been tightened across all 6 poll-bound districts in the Union territory. The second phase will decide the fate of 239 candidates across 26 assembly constituencies. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau faces a litmus test in Parliament today as the Conservative Party led by Pierre Poilievre has introduced a motion of no confidence against the ruling Liberal government. No confidence motion is not expected to affect Trudeau's minority government as the Liberals with 153 seats have received support from other political factions which have 33 seats in the Canadian Parliament. With only a few days left until the Austrian national elections, exit polls have predicted the right-wing Freedom Party taking the top spot, followed by the Conservative People's Party. Led by Herbert Kickl, the FPO has promoted a staunch anti-migration stance mixed with a clear anti-establishment message, criticizing the measures implemented by the government during the COVID-19 pandemic to galvanize voters. Addressing the UN General Assembly in New York City, Chile's President Gabriel Boric said that his country is not in a condition to receive more migration from Venezuela. He said that US sanctions are causing thousands of Venezuelans to flee their country, including 800,000 to Chile alone. In his speech, the president emphasized his position on the war in Gaza. He said he refuses to choose between terrorism of Hamas or genocidal actions of Netanyahu's Israel. China has test-fired an intercontinental ballistic missile into the Pacific Ocean. The Chinese Defense Ministry said that the ICBM carried a dummy warhead and fell into a designated area of the sea. The launch by the People's Liberation Army was part of a routine annual training. It added the launch complied with international law and was not directed against any country or target. China has launched a Lijian-1 Y4 commercial carrier rocket with 5 satellites on board. The rocket blasted off at 7:33 a.m. local time from the Jichuan Satellite Launch Center in northwest China. It sent a group of satellites including the CAS or Chinese Academy of Sciences 1 satellite, CAS-02, into their planned orbits. A massive wildfire broke out in Ecuador's capital, putting citizens on alert for evacuations. Desperate residents collected buckets of water to help firefighters combat a massive wildfire that broke out in the Ecuadorian capital, engulfing the city in a thick layer of smoke. According to local reports, the fire started in northern Quito and spread across multiple areas, reaching 3 houses. The mayor of Quito, Munoz, urged citizens to keep roads and streets clear so that fire brigades could move through the city to combat the 5 hotspots. Chemical leak in southwestern Ohio in Whitewater Township has prompted an evacuation order for people in the area. The leak occurred near State Route 128 and US 50. Officials say the leak was not from a train derailment but a train car that had a valve open, releasing styrene gas. The car that was leaking has been separated from the other cars on the train as crews continue to work to keep the train cool. Visa shares took a hit on Wall Street after US Department of Justice filed a lawsuit accusing it of violating antitrust laws. The DOJ alleged that Visa suppressed competition by threatening merchants with high fees and paying off potential rivals. Visa, one of the world's largest payment networks, processes more than 60% of debit transactions in the US, bringing it $7 billion each year in fees collected. Allegations are that the company protects dominance through agreements with card issuers, merchants and competitors. The bid to tackle the interchange fees is part of the Biden administration's efforts to combat rising consumer prices. The head of the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration told a U.S. House subcommittee that safety culture improvements at Boeing may take 3 to 5 years to complete. The Congress is holding 2 days of hearings on Boeing and the company's safety turnaround efforts, with a Senate panel taking up the issue. A preliminary investigation has discovered that the Alaska Airlines plane left a Boeing factory without the 4 bolts needed to hold the door plug in place. The incident sparked numerous federal investigations into Boeing and numerous congressional hearings that raised questions about its quality and safety of its planes. Union video game actors filed an unfair labor practice charge and declared a strike against the company Formosa Interactive, which provides voiceover services for the popular online game League of Legends. SAG-AFTRA union members have stopped providing covered performance services to League of Legends and the massive multiplayer game developed by Riot Games in 2009. The League of Legends World Championship gives teams from around the globe the opportunity to compete for millions of dollars that are distributed among members. Thailand's government today launched the first phase of its flagship $14 billion stimulus handout scheme, which will eventually see an estimated 45 million people receive 10,000 baht each. The initial phase will see 10,000 baht distributed in cash to 14.5 million welfare card holders and disabled people and is expected to be complete by the end of the month. The scheme has been criticized by economists, including 2 former central bank governors, as fiscally irresponsible. South Korea's government said that its policy priority was more focused on tackling slowing domestic demand than rising household debt in the short term. The US Central Bank last week kicked off an anticipated series of interest rate cuts with a larger than usual half percentage point reduction that Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said was meant to show policymakers' commitment to sustaining a low unemployment rate. The Bank of Korea has said that it will make a wise decision after the recent interest rate cut by the US Federal Reserve. A senior executive from cybersecurity company CrowdStrike has apologized before a US House subcommittee for a software update that caused a global IT outage back in July. On July 19th, the outage led to flight cancellations and disrupted sectors like banking, healthcare, media and hospitality. Internet services were also affected, impacting 8.5 million Microsoft Windows users. Adam Myers, CrowdStrike's Senior Vice President of counter adversary operations, explained to the House Homeland Security Subcommittee that a faulty content update to the Falcon sensor security software caused the system crashes worldwide. Southern Republic of Russia, Dagestan is pushing for stricter control over cryptocurrency miners due to their excessive power consumption. Local authorities have reported that illegal mining operations are causing frequent power outages. Cryptocurrency mining requires constant operation of specialized hardware. It has drawn global concern because of its high electricity usage. Recently, a fire at a power substation in Dagestan's capital was linked to the increased energy demand from these miners. You may soon hear popular American actor and wrestler John Cena as a chatbot. According to reports, Facebook owner Meta Platforms has secured deals with actors including Judi Dench, Kristen Bell and John Cena to give voice to its Meta AI chatbot. The new audio feature will offer users the option to select a voice for Meta's ChatGPT like digital assistant from a list of 5 celebrities as well as several generic voice options. Lina Khan, the US FTC commissioner, has put out an alarming warning saying that in a few years there is a possibility that airlines might use AI to find out whether you are attending a funeral and charge more accordingly. Khan added that AI's growth could lead to more instances of varying prices based on who you are and your financial standing. She gave an example of a person with nut allergies being charged more for granola bars without nuts. Khan said the FTC is looking into AI's potential role in increasing the risk of price discrimination in times to come.